to have all of the stakeholders there when you're having your conversations, because it's difficult, certainly past the first conversation that may be data gathering and general interest, to have all of the stakeholders there. There's a delay running, Ryan, if you're listening to this. It's difficult, certainly. Let's see if I can turn on the speaker. There we go. Okay. So that's to me kind of the way you look at it is you say, okay, if I've got one person, it's founder led, then that person is going to be my main contact. If it is another important stakeholder, a participating or operating partner, like yesterday I did a consult with a company that has two primary partners. One is kind of the visionary and one is the person that's the chief operating officer that's making things happen. And so I need to have conversations with both of them because you've got to have buy-in. And so your best way to build buy-in is by having a continuing conversation with the people that have a stake in the outcome. And so if you're thinking about buying the business and delivering an LOI, I definitely want to deliver my LOI to everybody. I want to, to walk through that. Now, I've got another situation right now in a business that we're acquiring that has a operating partner and a founding and operating partner, and the founding operating partner is going to continue on, and the other partner is going to basically be bought out. So I am having separate conversations with both of them about the buyout, and then the one of them about the ongoing. And I think that's something that you also want to think about. So I know that's not as like solid a formulaic answer as possible, but the key is that whoever the primary decision makers are, spend the time connecting and bonding with them and building know, like, trust, communicating with them so that they see all of the things that you want them to see that don't accidentally get misread through the game of telephone by having it relayed by the one person you're talking to. And also so that there's no opportunity to agendize the communications in a way that would negatively frame something you're trying to accomplish. Does that make sense?
It does, and I appreciate your perspective on it. And just stylistically, do you like to ramp up to the LOI or set the stage with of the LOI that's coming, and then email it to them, or do you present and maybe you don't present in person, but I mean, just stylistically, how do you get the LOI in their hands? Do you like
Yeah, I
to present?
prefer to go over it. So I'm not sending an LOI until we've had a conversation about all the points in the LOI, because I don't want to take the time to put it together until I feel like it's going to actually have a chance of going through. So my first preference is have the conversation and then say, hey, let's get on a call, and then I'll pull it up and walk through it with you, and then I'll send it over after I've walked through it with you, because we can identify any issues, as we're having that conversation. So I think that's the ideal way when the planets align. It doesn't always work out that way, but I never send the LOI unless I feel like I have a pretty good chance of having it already go through, because I've had the conversations about the deal points. Like when they see it in writing, it can be different than when you talked about it. And, the writing might have more detail specifying things that just didn't make sense to have in a conversation. So, there'll be questions about that, which is why I like talking about it, on a live call. So that's my number one preference. If not, then I will have had the conversation about most of the deal points before I send it over, and I'll send it over and say, look at it, talk to your partners, digest it, and then let's hop on a call and go over it. But either way, I'm either going over it before, preferably, I send it, or after, pretty close.
And then then there's some tweaking if there's some pushback or some clarification that might be needed, and you'll sort of tweak it and then iterate a couple, once or twice, or like, I don't know, hopefully only if once or twice. You don't iterate the LOI
Yeah, you
too
should
many times.
have had enough of a conversation before you're taking the time to send an LOI, before you're taking the time to make it. Because one of the things, for all of you guys that I see as a thing that is an opportunity for improvement is to not spend too much time on deals that won't happen, right? Because it is important that you don't spend 2 or 3 hours on every potential deal, because you won't have enough time to look at enough deals to make one happen that's good. So I want to basically have disqualifying conversations immediately as soon as possible to see, like, within a 10-15 minute call, is this a possibility? That's kind of my first level. And then I can get rid of a whole bunch of people that way. And a lot of them are not yet. I don't generally say, okay, that's a no and we'll never talk again. I'm like, well, it just sounds like you're not ready to sell, or you need to work some things out before we really have a conversation, or you've got to talk to some other people. I'd love to follow up with you in 30, 60, 90 days, and we can talk about that. If you're ready before then, give me a call and we can talk. That also happens with price, because, I absolutely must get, $17 million for it and it's worth $4. Like, well, right now you've priced, and I don't say, you're insane. It's like, right now, I don't see how I can get to the number that you want, unless you're willing to give me insane terms. Would I give you $17 million, $1 a year for 17 million years? Probably. But, but I'm guessing you don't want to wait that long. So, right now it doesn't seem like you're the seller that, that I'm looking for. But time and experience may lead you to believe that the company is not going to generate the desired sale price that you're at right now. And when and if that falls, I am an interested buyer, so let's talk later. It's like always keeping those alive. But 10, 15 minutes tops, right, to get to that point. Now they're in pipeline. So you nurture them, you send them notes that you send to everybody, put them on your email list, so that you stay top of mind. But the few that then are like, yeah, I mean, generally I want more than you're offering, but maybe we could work something out. Okay, well, I'll have a conversation there, and I'm probably willing to spend up to an hour having those conversations to see if we can get our terms close enough together to get to LOI. A lot of those do not get to LOI either, right? So I'm not taking the time to then create a document that's going to take me another 45 minutes or so to do, and call it an hour between uptime, downtime, send it, get it ready, edit it. I don't want to spend that time unless I've already pretty much got an agreement on the key points of it. So that second, time qualification tier of that, up to an hour, is to get those points together. And then if I can't, it's pipeline. If I can, I say, okay, so let me just go over this for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seem to be our key deal points. Does that make sense to you? Yes, it does. Okay, great. Then what I'll do is I'll put that into a letter of intent and send it over, or I might just put it into a contract. I might just go straight to a contract and skip LOI. If the deal's not a big deal, really, if it's under about $5 million, I'm probably going to just not do an actual formal let's sign an LOI. I will go over the terms 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and have just a term sheet. And I won't even ask them to sign it, because I just want to be sure we're on the same page. If that's the case and I've got that, then I'm just going to draft a contract and send it a lot of the time. Or I'll send the LOI and then I'm going to give about another 2 hours of possibility time to getting my LOI that I've sent, having a conversation about that and getting that finalized, right? So if you can do that, like that 10, 15 minute first part, qualifier, disqualifier, is going to save you so much time, because had you spent the 2.5 to 4 hours that you might spend on the second part, the second and third part, the qualifying and then sending and talking and negotiating, that's going to be a big deal. That amount of time that you save is going to allow you to, let's say it was 4 hours and we're allocating 15 minutes to qualifying, disqualifying. Well, that's 4 times 4. That's 16 deals that you didn't get to look at if you're spending the 4 hours on the one deal. Does that make sense? Like that's a big time management thing when you're looking at deals, I think, that a lot of people don't think about.
Thank you. I'm just intellectually curious. What's a good deal volume? And not to be too personal, but what is your deal volume looking?
Well, in terms of how many things come across my desk in the 10, 15 minute range, it's probably 50 to 100 a month. But I have lots of people that are throwing things up, and it's probably more than that. Honestly, those are the ones that like I get to hear about. But Deanna probably talks to more than that. My acquisitions team probably talks to more than that I don't ever even see, because it's just like not even a possibility, or it's in an industry or an area we have no interest in, or somebody's reaching out, for money. That's my least favorite, is, that's the least valuable thing I can do for somebody is give them money, right? And so those are all deals that just get no's right off the bat. And then we get to to them vetting, and then we get to me seeing them. And the roofing deal, Deanna, that we're doing right now, right? That's a great example. That's a couple of opportunities for a couple of companies, and I haven't looked at any of them yet, because Deanna is having the initial conversation, because she's my business partner on that. And that's, one of the many reasons that I love her, is that I'm not going to be shown anything that's not more in that second time bucket, where we're actually talking about terms and things like that. And I think your other
Thank you.
question was like, how many do you need? You only need one, you know, but it has to be the right one. So your chances of getting the right one are always increased by being able to look at more deals. So the more that you can create opportunities to look at and have people that are out there that know that you're looking for a specific buy box or, acquisition criteria that you've created, the better off you're going to be. Which is also why I say, don't say, I'm going through this with somebody right now. Don't say, here's my acquisition criteria. Health companies, personal service companies like HVAC, plumbing, electrical, etc., e-commerce companies, and digital marketing agencies. That's kind of almost everything in the world. Like, that's so diluted. You tell that to somebody at a party that you meet, what do? I buy business. Oh, that's cool. What kind of businesses do you buy? Everything in the world. They're never going to refer you anybody. But if you say, I buy healthcare related companies that involve chiropractors, well, then they're going to say, oh, my uncle's cousin's nephew, has a chiropractic practice. And interestingly enough, he's talking about selling, and he and his wife want to do this, blah, blah, blah. And they own it together. They're both chiropractors. They met in school. Now they'll tell you a story, and they're going to think about you the next time they meet somebody that's got a chiropractic business that wants to sell it, right? So that specificity is really important for you to have. It's kind of funny. Like, you'll get more deal flow by weeding out a whole bunch of stuff and being specific than you will if you want to buy anything in the world. That's kind of a weird, it's like, counterintuitive for sure.
Thanks, Roland.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, my
Thank you,
pleasure.
Roger. Awesome. All right, Laura, I believe you're up, darling.
Hey, Laura.
Yes. Hello, how you doing?
I am doing well. It's always funny, like that background that you have, when like 4 people on the screen have the same one. I'm like, how are you guys all in the same place? That's amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway, how can we help today?
Yes, been making lots of phone calls in the auto repair shop space.
I know that one
And
well.
I've been talking to an owner who's ready to retire.
Great.
He's been doing all the financials himself for 20 some years. I was able to pull out of him his Mitchell 1 sales and gross revenue. And that was a huge stretch for him to even get all of that put together and sent to me.
Okay.
And when Coach Bill and I encouraged him to put it all together into a P&L, that was more than he could comprehend. So we've backed off a little bit to just say, 3 years of completed tax returns and 18 months of bank statements, which he's willing to do. Haven't seen him yet, but I think he's getting frustrated.
So tell me what your question is.
What?
Tell me what your question is.
My question is, how do I get what I want? How do I get to the P&Ls I need when he's not quite able to do it himself?
So I would argue
Doesn't know how.
I would argue that you don't need the P&L. You only need a rough estimate as to what is the cash flow and profit of the business.
Okay.
He definitely, unless he's, trying to pick a fight with the federal government, filing tax returns. And so you could say, without showing me a P&L and without showing me your tax return, tell me the amount of income on your tax return that you're showing as profit from this business for the last couple of years. And if you have that, then you just say, since you weren't able to give me a P&L, and I'm certainly open to you, preparing one, I'm going to use this information because this is something that you've reported to a third party that you have to be honest with generally. And so let's agree that that's what we'll use right now, although it could change if you find that you've got more information, or if you want to argue, yeah, but I did this for taxes, then we'll talk about that. But at least that gives us a number, since you don't know what the number is and I have to have something to work with. Let's do it that way. And then start with that number and see if it makes sense. And then you can work backwards from there to see if there's add backs or adjustments to that number.
Thank you.
Okay. And then say hi to Robert Singer, because he is apparently sitting right beside you there at the Golden Gate Bridge.
I love it. All right. Solomon, I think you're up next.
Hi,
Hey,
Diana.
Solomon.
Hi, Roland. How are you? Thank you
I
for
am
sharing
excellent.
this.
How are you doing today?
Fine, thank you. Thank you for sharing this next level of CFE framework. It's amazing.
Pleasure.
I would love to get your perspective of how to approach a specific business owner I've been speaking with.
Okay.
The business has been around for 58 years. It was founded by his father and currently generates about 20 million in annual revenue and with a 14% profit margin.
Okay.
When I asked about exit plans or preparing the business for a future sale, he was very dismissive. His exact words were something along the lines of, I'm just going to keep it running until one day I close it down. If I sell it, what would I even do with my time? So clearly, he's not thinking in terms of a legal sale or even a lifestyle shift. He's emotionally tied to the business, but hasn't considered how selling might give him new purpose of freedom. So my question are, have you come across situations like this before, whether the owner isn't motivated by money and isn't thinking in terms of preparing for a sale?
Yes.
Very tough.
Well, I mean, it's tough to get somebody to do something they don't want to do. One of the things that you might do, though, is to say, I totally get that. I'm probably going to work until I draw my last breath because I love what I do. Do you love everything about this business right now? My guess is that the answer is no. The answer is, what I love about it is blah, 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 blah. So have a conversation to identify the things that this person really, really enjoys about the business and the things that really they don't like, that they wish they didn't have to do. And you might find that the business could split into two businesses. For example, I was talking about roofing companies. Roofing companies typically have two different businesses. They have an installation business and they have a repair business. The same is true. I was just on the phone this morning with the former CEO of CrossFit, and they were talking about that when they came into the business actually is three separate businesses, and one of them is the licensee franchise. They call them affiliates, but basically the owners of the franchises. The second is a coaching business with about 150,000 coaches, and the third is an e-commerce business, right? E-commerce and events. So like it's three businesses, and that business was founded by and owned by an entrepreneur, and they've had some challenges and everything. And I think it's for sale again now. But anyway, what you do in a situation like that is you can say, okay, so you've got these three different business segments. Which ones do you love? And, do you love them all? Very often the answer is, I hate events. I love the one where we're kind of have the ed tech, teaching the coaches how to do their thing. And these franchisee guys, I got 14,000 of them. They're kind of a pain in the butt. Okay, so you really like this one. What if we spun off these other two and you just got to focus all your time as you deserve on the thing that you love? And you had these other two things that you don't enjoy that are now gone from your life, and you've got a pile of money that you can invest in growing the thing that you love or doing something else that you love too, right? So like that's a really good place to start, that you might find that there is a splittable business. If it's not already like bifurcated or trifurcated into 2 or 3 parts like the ones I was talking about, maybe as you go in and look at the business, you see that it is possible that something could be spun off from it, right? So like when I came into digital marketer, it turns out digital marketer had, we've already had exits on 5 different businesses that I didn't even know about being potentially exitable until I got in there, right? And neither did the owners. And so, but yet we still have digital marketer, and we're looking at yet another exit for it, right? So that could be exciting to them too. It's like, what if you could sell without selling? And you're basically always sharpening your saw for the business that you like, and always trimming off, pruning away the parts of the business that you don't like. How does that sound? Right? That would be something you could potentially get them excited about. And if not, then maybe a CFE deal where it's like, okay, I totally get it. I'm going to work until I die too. I absolutely love it. Wouldn't know what to do with myself if I didn't. But what I have found is that that I'm always looking for, how do I get better? How do I make my customers happier? How am I improving my employee satisfaction? How am I making more money and doing less work myself that I don't like, so that I can do the work that I love? And maybe approach that from, what do you love most about the business? And then, how much time do you actually get to spend doing that thing that you said that you love? Oh, really? Only 4 hours a week? What do you do with the other 36, assuming you're only working 40 hours, right? And then have that conversation that way. But like, that's how I would approach it. I'm not going to try to persuade them to do something they don't want to do. I'm going to lean into the things that they do want to do in a way that advances me towards what my hope, my hopeful opportunity is with them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. It seems like I need to invest more time trying to showing him a compelling future more than the business, because he
Yeah.
enjoys operates his business 9 to 5 and maybe no other hobby. So his hobby is his business. So yeah, if it's worth it, I need to invest more time and discovery meetings with him.
Yeah. And then back to the conversation that I had a second ago too, maybe you move on because you spent your 15 minutes and this just isn't a seller, right?
Yeah. Yeah, got it.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Solomon. All right, I think Marius, you're up.
Marius.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, Roland, thanks for all the insights you're sharing. This is very a wealth of knowledge, and let me just say that I feel privileged to be part of the. I'm not just saying that, but really to be part of the Epic community.
Well, we are
There's
happy
just
to
so
have
much
you,
info.
and truly, and I hope that you guys see it. We all feel privileged to be able to have the opportunity to work with you and talk about the things that we love, and and do deals with you guys. So that's like it is very, very much a mutual feeling.
That's great. That's great. Quick question today, just on deal flow. I'm starting to be more serious about doing that. I've been absorbing a lot of content so far into the program. But on deal flow, I'm sort of trying to optimize that process as best I can. So with respect to sort of how that process goes, what's sort of the best way to go about it in generating, what source to get my list from? Is it Zoom info? I think I heard somebody mention, are there better sources than that? CRMs, do we need to use CRMs to sort of keep track of everything? What's sort of the best medium to do deal flow or outreach? Cold call, direct mail, LinkedIn, all of the above, a combination thereof. So maybe I'll just stop there and get your thoughts.
Yeah, those are all great questions. So in terms of lead flow, to me, it depends on what your industry is and how identifiable the potential sellers are. I like lists. I particularly like industry directories because they are usually current and more accurate than big list companies like which list company are we using now, Deanna, mostly?
We just finished Zoom info.
Yeah, but I think we terminated our contract with them. Did we? There were a couple others that we sent over. I don't know if have you decided on any one of those yet?
We haven't moved forward with a new one yet.
Okay. Data Axle is another one that I have that a lot of folks in Epic have used that they've been very happy with. Zoom Info just was too expensive. To me, for the results that we were getting, it didn't make sense, and it was like a $70,000 a year contract. So we elected not to renew with them. But what I typically like to find, like, let's say, do you have a kind of company you're trying to buy?
Home services in general.
Okay, so home services falls into lots of different categories. So I would say, like, let's say you're interested in HVAC, then you've got a lot of competition from private equity in that particular market, which is why I picked it. But there's over 100,000 potential candidates for you to acquire, and most of those aren't going to rise to the level that works for private equity. So you've got a couple of interesting opportunities when you pick a niche like that. You can say, look, I'm going to run across people that are larger that maybe haven't been approached by private equity and aren't actively listed for sale. How am I going to find those people? Probably through Google Maps scraping, right? Something like that. Or maybe, and because Google generally has pretty good data, I like Google Maps scraping for that. But that's if you've got a geographic area. And then, that's a good way to do it. And there's Phantom Buster and all kinds of scraping solutions to do that. The next way to do it would be to find a directory. It could be like an Angie's List type thing or somebody else, in the industry. One thing I love is to partner with events like trade shows that have attendees that are my ideal market, because they will typically sell the list of the registrants for the trade show. And what I like about trade show attendees is that they have already made the decision to invest in their business. Like, they know that they're not happy where they are, or they want to be up on the latest stuff, but they're looking to, like, they're actually spending money to travel, to take time off, and to pay the fees to attend, and the other costs associated with that. A event for their industry that's designed to create some sort of improvement. So I know they're after improvement, so they're really in my buy box of people that are willing to invest in their business, right? So if I can get with the trade show and get access to that list, maybe it's a sponsor, right? Even if I don't want to go and put a booth up there, a lot of those things will allow you to email the list, or they'll even give you copies of the list. And so if I've got that, that's going to be, to me, one of my favorite places to have the list. Other than that, I'll Google directories of, and then whatever it is. That would be another way to find them, right? Directories of plumbers in California. And there might be also licensing, and particularly in home services, there might be licensing agencies. Like there's the CSLB in California, the Contractor State Licensing Board. So if I'm looking for window repair companies, I can go to the CSLB database and find all of the companies that do that have licenses to do it. So that's another way that I'll go about getting that data. So that's kind of the data answer. In terms of CRM, my favorite CRM is the one that we built for this, which is the Epic Business Suite. You should have access to that and can talk to Bailey about it if you don't, because like it provides all of the outreach methods from texting to phone calls to emails to snail mail to ringless voicemail. Those are the 5 primary outreach categories other than door knocking. And I think that whatever your particular preferred method of communication is going to be the one that's going to probably be the best for you. But the more ways you go about it, because different people like different things. I hate voicemail. Don't listen to it half the time. I love text. I don't read my snail mail at all. Somebody else gets it, picks it up, filters it, throws it all in the trash, and gives me the few that matter. So for me, the best way you're going to get to me is by text, right? But other people love email. Some people are, especially older people, don't like any of that electronic newfangled stuff that's all a fad and probably won't last. They like paper, right? So that's, I think, like if you're trying to reach the greatest number of people, you're using all 5 of those modalities. And I like the Epic Business Suite the best for doing it. But I like it because we built it specifically to do what you're doing. Like, you're following in the footsteps of, all the mistakes that we made trying 17 different ones, and then building out one that fit the best for us. And ours is built on high level, which is a great resource, but ours is basically a shell over that has all of our material already in it, right? So I think that answers all of three of those questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Marius. All right, Stuart, I think you are our last question of today. How are you?
Stuart, what
Good,
is
good.
happening?
Hey, Roland. Hey, I looking at e-commerce business. It's listed with a broker. I think I may have someone in Epic that may be partnering with me, so I'm pretty excited about this.
Great.
The broker, no surprise, they had it listed at 3.2. They dropped it to 2.2, and plus they've got about 1.5 in inventory. My question, how do I? And they aggressively said, yeah, we'll do owner financing, 50%. But I don't know, how do I offer, since they offered 50% owner finance, and how would you structure that? Do I just see if they'll do 80% and then do the inventory?
So
Can you help me with?
So what you're saying, I think, is you have an offer, or you have someone who is open to creative financing, but you're trying to figure out how to do the deal stack.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have a place to start. Have you given them like a proposal? Like, have you said, we typically do these deals 80% seller financing and 20% earnout or anything like that?
No, but I can do that. No,
Yeah.
I mean,
That gives you a place to start.
okay.
And, ever so often, not often, but ever so often, somebody says, okay,
Okay, I'll take
right?
it.
Yeah, and you're good. And if not, you've got a place to say, okay, so you said that doesn't work for you. Help me understand what does. Well, I need all cash. Okay, well, I can give you all cash, but you're probably looking at 500,000 because of the law of price and terms. I'm assuming that you don't want to do that, but if you do, I can go get that for you. Is that something that you're interested in? Oh, I can possibly sell it for that. Okay, well, great. So we're between 2.2 million and 500,000. But keep in mind, from my perspective, if I'd met you last week, I would have paid 3.2 million. So by waiting, I saved myself $1 million. So there's clearly some flexibility in the price. I've given you my opening offer and you've come back with you would like all cash, but all cash isn't possible because of the law of price and terms. Explain that to them, what the law of price and terms is. And then say, if you want 2.2 million, I can get you that. It's going to look like a combination of seller financing and earnout and some other creative stuff. So help me understand, if you want cash, how much cash do you actually need and what are you going to do with it? Right now I'm getting into having a conversation, building rapport, building a relationship, collaborating instead of negotiating. I'm on your side, seller. I want to get you what you need to do what you want to do. To do that, I need to understand what that is. And then we're going to have to talk about how can we get that to you in the best way that makes sense for me as well. Does that make sense? Yes, it does. Great. Okay. And then you just have that conversation. And then I would look at the 15 most common ways that financing is done and the 30 ways that most financing is done, and use your time conversing with the seller to kind of broach each of the topics that you would need their buy-in to do, and then gather the information that you would need to determine if you could use the others. So for example, you don't need to say, and I watched somebody make this mistake, I think we talked about it maybe even on the last call, but somebody said, yeah, I went to them and I was like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use your accounts receivable, and then I'm going to use, some credit-based financing. I'm going to use this. I'm like, why are you telling them this? That not only is it none of their business, they don't care, and then they're going to not understand. Like you're just opening yourself to all kinds of additional objections, questions, roadblocks, and friction that you don't need to if you keep that to yourself. So what you need them to help with is a deferred down payment. You need them to help with an earnout. You need them to help with a rollover of their interest into the other deal, like they sell you 80% now and keep 20 or something like that, for seller financing. But outside of that, you need to know, do they have accounts receivable? How long have they been in business? Do they have stable revenue and profits for the last couple of years? Okay, well, now that might let me use revenue-based financing. Do you have an IRA so that you might be able to use rollover business startup funding? Do you have, does the business have people who've been working in the business as managers who maybe could become investors and provide what is it? And provide a integrator equity, right? That's another, because that's one of the things we use. So like, don't ask the seller for information that you don't need the seller to know about, right? Like, ask them for the things that you need to have data to determine how you build the deal stack around those 15 or 30 items that we say are the most common, right? Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay. And just I guess I've been kind of beating around the bush with them, but just be direct. Say, hey, typically, we do 80% owner finance and an earnout. Just put that out there. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Say, look, I mean, and you need to say it confidently to sell it, right? I say, the way we do most of these deals is with 80% seller financing and then a 20% earnout, because we find that gets you a commitment on the 80%, and then on the 20%, it gives you potential upside. So we're able to get closer to the number that you want if the business performs the way that you're telling me it's going to perform, and the 80% guarantees that you've got some amount that you can count on for sure. How does that sound?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Roland.
Yeah, you're welcome.